إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله عز وجل كما جاء في محكم التنزيل يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. Brothers and sisters, we begin with praise. An abundant praise and gratitude from the depths of our existence to recognize where our existence came from and the favors and the bounties we all live in every single day. And those of us who are here in Charlotte, North Carolina, coming to on this beautiful day to the mosque to enjoy Khutbah al-Jum'ah, we must say Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah wa bihamdi at least 100 times today. Why? We should be doing that every day, but when we look at what our brothers and sisters are going through all over the world, in Syria and Myanmar and Africa and Yemen and elsewhere, Subhanallah, may Allah give them patience, may Allah give them, if their time comes, the martyrdom, and may Allah enter them all into heaven by all of the sins that were removed from them, from the afflictions they faced. And I bear witness that there is no deity and nothing that should be worshipped except for God alone. And I bear witness that Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, was the final messenger and prophet and official servant of God, sent as an example for all of mankind, that they may know the straight path back to Him until the day of judgment. We're now entering what we have as Women's History Month. And I thought it's important for us to look into the concept of manhood and womanhood. And being that these concepts are highly presented to us and marketed to us about what does it mean to be a man or to be a woman, we have to be careful which marketing, which system we are adopting, because there are various worldly views about these things. Many cultures have adopted what they have decided it means to be a man. And this goes from the Muslim world here to America. They both have their own problems grappling with this idea. And there are so many different means of entertainment, of marketing that's constantly brainwashing us as to how should we look at manhood and womanhood. So if we're going to actualize our declaration of faith, then we should go to the Quran and look into what God has defined as manhood there. And we should look into the Sunnah and the person of the beloved Prophet ﷺ and see that he was the greatest of all men. And we should look into the mothers of the believers, and we should see that they were amazing examples for what it means to be a woman. And if we properly embrace manhood and womanhood as Scripture defines it, then the healthy nucleus of society, marriage, and the healthy understanding of growing and developing a community will be sound. It will be there. And so, the Arabic word rajul, it goes back to rijl, the one who's firm on his feet. So, historically, the basic literal meaning is aksul mar'ah, that it is the opposite of a woman. But if we look into the Quran, we'll see many examples in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ as well, that the word man is not the same as male. Okay? Manhood requires some sort of character qualification. So just because someone became a physical man does not mean they are qualifying in the Islamic guidance of what it means to be a man. And that is a character description. And when you look at the term rajil, the one who walks on their feet, and they are firmly, and they have their hands free, and they know what they're doing in life, and they're moving forward in life accordingly. This is the metaphorical context of the wording. So the Quran talks about prophethood in this way. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ إِلَّا رِجَالًا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِمْ فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. It says, we always sent men before you who we would send them messages, and so ask the people of knowledge if you are seeking an answer, if you don't know. And so the Quran in Surah Al-Ahzab, it talked about taking the Prophet ﷺ as the example. And then it talked about how the Prophet ﷺ was always, you know, if you read the tafsir of how these ayahs are put together in the middle of Surah Al-Ahzab, it talks about he was always faced with affliction. The Prophet ﷺ, since the day he announced his prophethood, since the day he called his people to embrace the oneness of God and to plan to be accountable when we die, he faced affliction after affliction and hardship after hardship, and never did he waver. I mean, he went through things none of us are going through. And so he did not waver. He was firmly footed. He simply stood up for this covenant. When people started giving him offers about making him the king and making him rich because they respected him as a person, he said, that's not what I'm here for. He didn't accept any of that. When people threatened his life, tried to kill him, when they suggested, okay, let's just, mix it up a little bit. One day we'll all worship then the next day we'll worship just God alone at the Kaaba. What do you say? And he said, I'm sorry guys, we don't do polytheism. This is a disgrace to this house that was built by Abraham and his son Ishmael, who were pure monotheists, carrying the prophethood. So then the Quran says, مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ رِجَالٌ صَدَقُوا مَا عَاهَدُوا اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ. Right? That there are from the believers that they are fulfilling their covenant. They are serious about what they've committed to in faith. And وَفَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَضَى نَحْبًا, that there are those that are ready to die if it means to protect the livelihood and the practice of faith of the believers that we saw. And so this comes right after the verse of Ahzab, because basically, unfortunately, 2 Jewish tribes and 2 pagan tribes, Ghatafan, they have come and surrounded Medina. And it looks like everybody is going to be killed. It looks like that. And so God basically is now confirming that there are people among the believers that are men, that are ready and willing to die. They are ready and willing to put their self and their wealth in the line of hardship and possibly death in order to defend the truth and stand up for what's right. صَدَقُوا مَا عَاهَدُوا اللَّهَ عَلَيْهِ. That they are honest and genuine towards the covenant that they have established between them and their Creator. وَمِنْهُمْ مَن يَنْتَظِرُ. And there are some of them that their time didn't come, but they are ready and willing when their time comes. So what is this saying? It's saying that the concept of courage and bravery is holistic, and it first represents protection of faith. Right? So you'll have some Muslim men who, in their mind, you have to be courage, brave, stand your ground. But you will see that they will be selective in where they stand their ground. And you will see that when it comes in a family setting, or in a setting of somebody they have authority over, you'll see there, mashallah, Rajab, big man. But when it comes to putting oneself in, the odds are stacked against them, or standing up for faith and the practice thereof, or putting their wealth and their time for faith in order to defend it and to promote it, you will see there in the back of the scenery. And this is not manhood. So he first defined it as people who are willing to defend the faith, and they are not thinking, worrying, oh, what might happen to me if it be known that I'm Muslim. This is not manhood. A man would be known who it is that created you, and who do you serve? So I serve God. He created me and brought me into existence, and His final messenger Muhammad received the revelation, the Holy Quran, and I'm following that. That is something that is manhood, to be known for who you are. And when people say terrible things, I've had brothers come to me and he says, Imam, at work sometimes people start saying stuff, about the terrorists and this and that, and I said, well, you've got to cut in that conversation and say, no guys, I think you have it all wrong. You shouldn't really be talking like that. I can tell you as a Muslim, you have the wrong idea. This is definitely not the story. And unfortunately, you're getting it from sources that are promoting an agenda that is not honest and genuine, or fair and balanced, as they say. Right? So, that's the first one. Then the second verse that talks about manhood, because the Quran uses various terminologies to refer to believers. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ya ayyuhan nas, talking to everyone. It talks to people in different ways. But in some verses he talked about manhood in terms of deep spirituality. See, when he talked about dhakar and untha, it was a general statement. Anytime the Quran says male and female, it just says the generality of equality and spirituality and like that. But whenever it talks about deep spiritual responsibility for a man, he says men. He says it like that. And so the next one is after the verse of light, when he talks about the light being cultivated in the heart of the believer, and that it is a process that brings light upon light if it is embraced properly. Then he says, where is that best cultivated? فِي بُيُوتٍ أَذِنَ اللَّهُ أَن تُرْفَعَ. It is in houses of worship that God has called to be promoted and lifted up, and that He would be remembered day and night. Then he described who are the people in there. رِجَالٌ لَا تُلْهِيهِمْ تِجَارَةٌ وَلَا بَيْعٌ عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَإِقَامِ الصَّلَاةِ. That there are men who are in there that are not fooled, and their time is wasted in wealth and in seeking business dealings. Rather, they would take their time out to go be part of the jama'ah. And let it be known that this rijal here doesn't necessarily only mean male. Because we saw the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, they were there in the mosques praying Fajr and Isha regularly. We saw the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, the mothers of the believers, praying Fajr and Isha in the mosque regularly, as is noted in Bukhari and Muslim and all of the well-established hadith tradition. But it's saying that men who are busy with their work and they're making money should not be like, oh, I can't ever be at the mosque. It's one thing to balance out between your family responsibilities and being at the mosque. It's another thing to completely never be at the mosque outside of Friday prayer. The Quran is defining that true men are at the mosque regularly. They are there building a communal connection of a faith family with their fellow believers. As we saw, the Prophet ﷺ said, the men will be at the front, and the best of them are those that get here on time to be in the front row. He said, that's the best among you. And then the next, and then the next, and he said, then we'll have kids praying here. And when he said kids, he's talking about, probably between 10 and 15, something like that, people who can pray, and they know what they're doing. And then in the back, he said, we have the women here. And we know from the hadith that the mosque was packed. Men, women, and teens and young kids were there all the time. Fajr, Isha. Now somebody might say, yeah, Imam, back then, their whole life was revolving around these prayers. It's Medina, it's the bedrock of Islam. They all live within like a 10-minute walking. Everything shuts down when it's time to pray. I understand all of that. So I'm not expecting everybody to be like they were, because our context is different. You can't just be in the mosque for every salah. That would be irrational and unrealistic. But to be at the mosque a few times a week for Fajr and Isha is definitely not hard, because I've done it all my life and I have kids and responsibilities and things outside of it. So Imam, his job to pray at the mosque. Actually, the vast majority of my time, 60-some hours, is outside of the mosque. Okay? And that's a model that unfortunately we need to revive in the Muslim world, because the Prophet was Imam al-Muttaqeen, and when he was not at the mosque, he was the leader of all of the believers, doing so many different things all the time, and not just some guy who comes to pray in the mosque. This is secularization of the Muslim world that we see. So the next ayah is whenever it talked about how the attitudes of those who were hypocrites, and they split off, and they made the Masjid Dirar. They established the mosque that was there to create conflict in the Muslim community. Some hypocrites, and they basically said, let's go make our own mosque, and then call people to it and say, we are really following the Prophet ﷺ, but then we'll work to channel information and plans to dismantle this religion from inside. So then God basically talks about how the mosque should be. He said, لَمَسْجِدٌ أُسِّسَ عَلَى التَّقْوَى مِنْ أَوَّلِ يَوْمٍ أَحَقُّ أَن تَقُومَ فِيهِ رِجَالٌ يُحِبُّونَ أَن يَتَطَهَّرُوا أو أَن يَطَّهَّرُوا. So then it says, the mosque was established on piety and God consciousness from the very beginning. That's how it must be established. Not about power and control and political maneuvering within the Muslim community that we see, unfortunately, across this country a lot. And so then it says inside of that mosque is men, رِجَالٌ يُحِبُّونَ. They love to be purified. They love purity and cleanliness. So the scholars commented on this, and they said that obviously tahara is the core, the key foundation of Islam. Okay? So this is two types of tahara. A lot of times people focus on just the ablution and the ghusl and the purification that is water, but that is a symbolic reality. That when we go through some sort of purification of our body, getting rid of our physical wastes, we purify ourselves and clean ourselves, and we make sure that when we're around the filthy things, we purify ourselves and clean ourselves. That's a metaphor to keep us in the thought process of purity and cleanliness, so that when we look at the purity of the heart, which is to remove sin and evil and to wash away the filth from our spiritual decisions and intentions and actions. So what he's saying here is that the mosque should be first established by people seeking purity, which is why our mission statement says, in the sincere worship of God, we strive towards character and excellence therein. So that is why we've made our mission statement following this teaching of the Holy Quran. And so that is the attitude of real men, is that they're on the path of self-accountability and establishing and building the house of God in the community. So there are many other examples, but we want to make sure that we're honest with our time, because aman sadaqu ma ahadullah alayh, that many times I went over the time limit, and that is not true manhood. I should say what I do and do what I say exactly as I said it. That is how a man is. A man would not be known to be late, because this is disgracing your word. And sure, you should be honoring your word when you give it to anyone. Similarly, as a Muslim community, if we say this is when we're going to do this event, we should all be there exactly at that time. And we should think that it's strange for someone to come late and look at them and that. But what's happened is, everybody's decided, let's just be late, because we know it will be strange if we're there on the time that we've all agreed and it has been announced that we're going to be there. So that has to do with manhood as well. But when we look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a time after his life, the Prophet ﷺ, when Amr al-As, he found that the Coptics of Egypt are asking for some help against the oppression of the Byzantines. Now this is an interesting part of world history, that these Byzantines are supposedly a Christian empire, and the Coptics are devout Christian natives of the land of Egypt. And so the army of Omar had only dealt with those two groups, the Persians and the Byzantines of the Syrian area, because they have basically killed one ambassador and then threatened to destroy the religion when they sent an ambassador to them. The Egyptian king was actually very nice and sent gifts to the Prophet ﷺ. So Amr al-As, he said, okay, I don't know how much infantry we have, if you can send us more infantry. So Omar said, okay, and he sent him 4 guys. And so the people there was a messenger sent with 4 men, Miqdad, Az-Zubair, Maslama, and Ubadah bin Samit. And of course, if you're leading an army, and then you know there's a lot of people in the Muslim community, he sends 4 guys. So then the messenger was sent with a letter. And he said, these 4 guys, each one of them is worth 1,000 guys. That was the attitude of Umar, radiallahu anhu. He knew these people. And it's not like there's some fierce warriors that are like from the 300 movie or something like that. No, actually they're just very devout, dedicated, spiritually rooted people who believe in the cause and will give this feeling of positive optimism in that Allah is with us in this battle, you know, and everybody it will move, it will become a viral, infectious goodness that everybody will feel confidence as a result of these pious companions of the Prophet. So one time Umar was sitting with his companions and he said, okay, let's everybody make a wish. Wish for something that you think would be so beneficial to you, right? It would be so, you'd be so happy to have it. So the first guy on his right, he said, you know what, I wish that I have this room full of gold, and then I could spend it on all of these good causes, and then it could be sadaqah jariyah, and it would be permanently beneficial wealth that I will keep benefiting for. So then the next guy got a little bit more creative. He said, no, I ask that we have this room in its weight in beautiful pearls and gems, because those are even worth more, and so I can give those. And then Umar said, actually, I just want a room full of people like Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah, Mu'adh bin Jabal, and Salim, Mawla Hudayfa, so that I could seek their benefit in bringing goodness to the world. And so he saw that the men, you know, they are the core part of the society and how they're going to benefit. And so if you don't have real men who have value and character, and they stand for truth and justice, and their faith and practice is strong, then the society can have all the gold at once, and people can have intentions to spend it on whatever, but the actions that will come from that will be little. So now somebody might look at this and think that there's some manhood and these manly manhood, the idea of being strong and powerful. And so one time Abdullah bin Mas'ud, who was short and skinny, radiallahu anhu. So one time the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, they are sitting outside a palm tree, and they said, let's go get some dates. So Abdullah bin Mas'ud, he said, okay. And so he took his turban and he wrapped it around, and then he started climbing up there. And he shook the dates. And when he went up there, some of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they're normal human beings with character defects sometimes as the rest of us, and they started laughing because he had very skinny legs. And so the Prophet ﷺ said, are you guys laughing at his skinny legs? And they said, well, you know, I'm sorry. Astaghfirullah. And he said, you need to understand that each leg is heavier than the weight of Jabal Uhud. And what he's talking about is the value of him as a man. It's not about muscles and power and strength and how tough you sound and all of that. It's about your character. It's about what you represent and how you live. So if you look into the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and you look into his close companions, those were men. And we are in a time and a place where we are in grave need of real men. Because now you have this idea of manhood that is all confused. You know, I remember one time, there was a brother at Islamic American University, and he was arguing with the sheikh about the whole beard debate. And the sheikh was like, okay, if you're not into the beard, then inshallah may Allah guide you, right? He was like, but don't grow a big old mustache thinking now you look like a man. Don't follow the Arab leader mentality, who are far from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and most everything they do, and try to look like one of these men that we see ruling the Muslim countries who are very immoral. If you're going to wear a beard and look like a man, as the Prophet ﷺ was indicating. And that's the whole point of the beard, is manhood, right? And so, this is where we see people are confused about what it means to be a man and a Muslim and what all that's all about. And so it's very important that we really review that. People think that, you know, if you're a tough guy, and all that, you're a man. So the Prophet ﷺ made it very clear to the people, لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِالسَّرْعَةِ. It is not that you are tough if you can wrestle people down and beat them in some sort of martial arts match. He said, إِنَّمَا الشَّدِيدُ مَنْ يَمْلِكُ نَفْسَهُ عِنْدَ الْغَضَبِ. That the tough man is the one who can control their anger whenever they have it. That they don't act all loud and yelling and cussing and saying mean things and abusing and all of these things. That is the weak man who does these things. And the one who thought they were tough needs to review the scripture so that we can find ourselves coming in line with the example of the Prophet ﷺ, as we are told, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. In the example of the Prophet ﷺ is the best example of manhood. So his idea of manhood and his example time and time again showed that a soft heart with an emotional presentation of character was there. Now somebody might be saying, hold on, what did you just say? That a real man is emotional and compassionate and caring? That is exactly how the Prophet ﷺ was. You all know the story, but you have to look at it in the right context. Some people just say, well, he's teaching compassion in general. No, he's showing people who don't understand manhood what proper manhood is. That's exactly what the lesson of the story is. When he's sitting there kissing Hassan and Hussein, and some man comes in and he says, I have 10 kids and I never kissed one of them. He is trying to yu'abbir an rujulat al-Arab. He is trying to explain to him that there's something wrong with you and that you are kissing this child, because what we know, a man doesn't do that. And then the Prophet ﷺ says, has mercy been revealed, has compassion been removed from your heart? And what he's saying is, a real man is compassionate, is fun-loving. That's the attitude. It said that لَقَدْ كَانَتْ مِنْ إِمَاءِ أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ لَتَأْخُذْ بِأَيْدِ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم فَيَذْهَبْ مَعَهُنَّ حَيْثُ شِئْنَا. That the hadith كما قال عائشة رضي الله عنها, that some of the young girls of Medina would go up to the Prophet ﷺ and say, here, let's go. And they'd grab his hand. And he'd say, oh, okay, let's go. He wouldn't be like, now listen to here, I'm a man, and I'm the Prophet. And this is some sort of kid's game you're playing here. No, that's not how he acted. The Prophet ﷺ went along with it, right? And so that's the attitude of the Prophet ﷺ. On many occasions, when his uncle, when his daughter, when people's children died, the Prophet ﷺ cried. And one time, Sa'd ibn Ubadah, he asked the Prophet ﷺ, is that tears? Are you crying? He's asking that question, if you look in some of the commentators, because it was known that men should not cry. That was an attitude of the Arab. And he said, إِنَّمَا هِيَ رَحْمَةٌ. Right? That this is mercy, this is compassion that God has put in my heart. And that every believer should have in their heart. Man and woman. He's showing true manhood. To cry at the death of somebody is a manly trait. Yet how many of you have seen that? We have left the sunnah of the prophetic manhood tradition on this, and we need to revive it. And there's men who will tell women that it's haram to cry as well. I was in a very strange situation that blew my mind into outer space whenever a woman whose son was in the ICU and they were saying that he's in a vegetative state and he probably will not wake up. And she started to cry. And she said, Astaghfirullah, Astaghfirullah. I said, why are you saying Astaghfirullah? She said, one of the sisters told me that the sheikh told her I'm not allowed to cry. And I said, what sheikh? And I'm not going to name names. And I said, I'm going to have to disagree from beginning, middle to end on this. This is the compassion and the love you have as a mother, and the Prophet ﷺ, who is the best example for anyone, male or female, he cried when he knew somebody was dying that he loved. That is the sunnah of the Prophet. Whoever got this idea, I'm here to tell you, we really need to not be secularized or to be overly confident in the understanding of religion that is prevalent right now in the Muslim world. We have to review religiosity, because Jahiliyyah has creeped back up, and some of the most religious of people are promoting ideas and practices that are completely antithetical to the beauty and greatness of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It's very important that we take this step. You know, when we talk about, I'm sure, you know, I'll never forget whenever I first got to know Imam Siraj Wahaj, Hafidhullah, one of the great leaders, one of the great men I've ever known. And he started calling me beloved. And at first I was like, okay. You know, but for some reason it sounds weird. He's calling me beloved, right? But then the Prophet ﷺ in the authentic hadith, إِذَا أَحَبَّ الرَّجُلُ أَخَاهُ فَلْيُخْبِرْهُ أَنَّهُ يُحِبُّهُ. The Prophet ﷺ said, in the hadith, the Sahih Tirmidhi, he says, if a man, and he made the point, man, because he knows women will have no problem with this. He said, if a man loves his brother, he should tell him, I love you. But most of you, if some brother came and said, brother, I love you, most people will add, fillah, right? And we all know that. And there's another one, where the Prophet ﷺ said, أَحَبَّكَ الَّذِي أَحْبَبْتَنِي لَا, right? Or fi. So, may Allah, may the one who you love me for him, love you too, right? And so, but here the Prophet ﷺ did not say, أَخْبِرْهُ أَنَّ يُحِبُّ لِلَّهِ. He said, أَخْبِرْهُ أَنَّ يُحِبُّ. That's the hadith, right? Tell him that I love you. There's nothing wrong with this. There's absolutely nothing. And if somebody made you feel that there's something wrong with this, there is a problem in your shahada. Because you're saying that something the Prophet ﷺ instructed, right? So I say, Imam, but aren't you talking about like how culture relates with religion and all of that? I have no problem with this. I do not think that now, if this person was known to have some way of thinking that we, disagree with, okay, that'd be a whole other angle, right? But I think the custom, we would know that this man is telling that man, I love you and I really appreciate you as my companion, as my friend. I love your company. I love having you around me, and that's a special thing to me. There's nothing wrong with that. That is manhood, because the Prophet ﷺ is the best of men. When the Prophet ﷺ first received the revelation, in the hadith, he comes back to Khadija and he's deeply confused. The Prophet ﷺ was deeply confused. Wallah, I was studying this recently because I was putting a detailed analysis in this book that I'm writing, and I found out that actually, at that moment, I've actually said it wrong before. There is nothing that would tell you that the one who came to him was an angel, and that he's actually a messenger of God at that moment. When he's in the cave, nobody told him, I'm an angel, and nobody said, you're the messenger of God, and that's what this is about. It's exactly as you see it. So he's all confused. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. And he's something about God and all of this, but I'm not sure, some strange guy, I don't know what this is. So he came down, he said, Mali, Mabi, right? 2 narrations. He said, what's wrong with me? Who is he telling? He's telling his wife. He has no problem in a low moment where he's very internally confused and afflicted with this feeling of something that doesn't seem right. He goes to his wife. And then she came back in a strong, she didn't say, well, I'm just your woman, and so I don't know anything. That's not the way she responded, radiallahu anha. As the Prophet's wife, as his woman, she stood up for him and immediately had a very strong response. The Prophet here is being very emotional. And she, as his wife, is being very firm on principled understanding of the situation and how to deal with it. And she advised him accordingly. And then she took him to her cousin, who then informed him, this is what I think it is, the angel who has come previously to Moses and others. That's when he first really knew exactly what it was. And then later, when he went up again, the angel Gabriel came down and said, I am Gabriel, you are the messenger of God, don't be sad. Right? That's when the only authentic hadith comes, that he was actually informed by Gabriel who he is and who he is now. And that was actually sometime later. Right before Surah Al-Mudaththir was revealed. So the Prophet ﷺ, similarly, and the Battle of Hudaybiyah, there was no, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, no battle that took place there. And so the Prophet ﷺ and his companions are challenging him. Alasta Nabi Allahi haqqa? Aren't you the true Prophet of God? That's how they told him. And he's, dealing with this, because they're like, you just now compromise everything for these mushrikeen. What happened to us? I thought we were the A'izzah. Allah has Azan Allah with Islam and all of that. Where's that? They were deeply disconnected. It was the only time in the whole seerah that the companions just totally did not obey him. He told them, let's just shave and then slaughter the animal as though even though they have not made pilgrimage. And they're all looking at him strangely, and they're not doing what he said. So where did he go? He went to his wife, Salama. He goes to Salama and says, look what they're doing. What am I supposed to do? He wasn't like, no, as a man, I have to figure this thing out. Ya Rabb, Jibreel. No, he went to his wife, Salama, and he told her, what do you think? And she said, here's what I think. I think they're just being a little bit stubborn, but they love you and they'll follow you. Just do as you have told them, you do it yourself and they'll follow. And then he went out, he did what she asked him to do, and then they did exactly as she said. She had deep rushd. She had a deep, firm, principled understanding of him and the situation and the best way to deal with it. And it was her guidance to the Prophet ﷺ that solved that scenario. And we learn a huge lesson of manhood and womanhood here. So whoever is saying all women at all times have problems in their emotional, intellectual reality, this is kadhib and iftira ala Allah wa deen wal khalq ajma'in. This is not right. This is a cultural exaggeration blown out of proportions. We need to be careful to generalize anything or anyone because it is unfair. Nobody likes it when they say the Arabs or the Pakistanis or the Salafis or the Sufis, or when people use these terms, blanket the Muslims and what they're doing. We don't like it. So don't ever do that to anyone as a group of people because it is harmful. So the Prophet ﷺ, there's a hadith narrated about him where he said, أَكْمَلَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَحْسَنُهُمْ خُلُقًا. The most perfect and the most complete of believers are those among them that have the best character. And he said, وَخِيَارُكُمْ خِيَارُهُمْ لِنِسَائِهِمْ. And then in that same hadith, the thing that he made, so we have عام, and then you have al-khas, ذُكِرَ بَعْدَ الْعَام. So have the tawqeed, you have the khas. So he said, well, let me explain that. So you have a general statement. The best of the believers are those who have the best character, right? That is what he said. Then he specified a specific type of character that would make you the best. He said the best among you are the best to the women among you, right? And so Aisha narrates hadith, خيركم خيركم لأهله. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَأَنَا خَيْرٌ لِأَهْلِي. You know who narrated that? His wife. And this hadith is mutawatir. That his wife is narrating that the Prophet told the people, the best among you is the best to your wife and your family. And I am the best to my wife and my family. If there was any doubt about that, why would they be narrating this hadith? There's obviously no doubt in their mind about this. So we see from the Prophet ﷺ the best example. We're running out of time, so we'll skip through here. When it comes to marriage, we need a huge reform in our understanding of marriage and roles in marriage and all of that. The Quran in one ayah explains the whole thing. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. That from His signs is that from human beings that there is their mate, their spouse, azwaja. This is Jumma al-Zawja and Zawj, and they actually mean the same thing because God calls Hawa Zawja. And so here he's saying that everybody has been made a spouse. He has created male and female to come together and be the source of the family. So why? لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. Now in Arabic you can say لِتَسْكُنُوا مَعَهَا. Okay? If you say لِتَسْكُنُوا مَعَهَا, that you will live with them. Okay? That's how most people understand it. We live in the same house, at Nabayt. Right? We said لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. So here the meaning has been understood by many scholars is that in living with them, you will bring sakina, you will bring tranquility to them as a result of your living with them. Meaning you will be a source of peace and comfort to your spouse. Right? Ilayha, to her, to him. That's what, and there's many ayat in the hadith that will talk about that as well, but I think that suffices to say that it's not about just, we live in the same house and then we have these roles. Like the man, he goes out and he works and all that, home, better have some food on the table, and then this, and then, got a satellite, and then we got to really rethink this whole thing. Because the family of the Prophet ﷺ was very different than that. Because كَانَ فِي مِهْنَةِ مِهْنَةِ أَهْلِهِ. That the Prophet ﷺ, he was in the concern and care of his family. That he was knitting things, he was fixing shoes, he was cleaning up, he was serving guests in his house. The Prophet, the best example of a man, was serving guests in his house. Some of the people who came to meet him for the first time were very confused by this. They're like, what do you have this? They thought he's a slave. No man in his house would do this, right? Now think how many times, it was the first time, mashallah, a good friend of mine in Oklahoma, Nuruddin. And every time we would go to his house, he would serve everybody. And he would come around and give the tea and all of that. And he would bring it in and have the table and all that. I said, man, mashallah. He said, the sister is not here. He said, no, she's doing her thing with the sisters in the other room, but I'm supposed to be serving. This is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was a source of peace and tranquility to his house in that he joined everybody and was their companion and partner in everything that took place in the house. And then it says, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. He has decreed that the healthy, good marriage, it has two qualities. Mawadda is a level above hub. Hub, I really like it, I'm attached to it. Mawadda, nothing can come between me and this thing. It's a deep, affectionate, attachment love, right? And so this is where mawadda is like, at all times, I'm trying to show love and compassion to my mawdood. And so the husband and the wife should randomly be doing acts of care and concern and comfort towards each other. Not just on the anniversary day or the Valentine's or whatever, but year-round it should be that's the character and the attitude that we have. It should never become this stagnant, routine, ritualistic, roles mentality. It should be an organic, constant, mashallah, one of the sheikhs in my mentorship, Ahmed Shlevik, he mentioned to whenever we were sitting with a group of college youth at the mosque, and he said, they're saying, well, how do you get married if you can't be like boyfriend and girlfriend? Like, how does that work? He said, well, what it is whenever you get to an age in a stable comfort zone in what you think you're ready to do in life, you would tell your family and the community, you would look for suitability, look for compatibility. So that's how you get married, is you find someone that, their character, their religion, their hopes and dreams, the attraction and the way they look and how you feel around them. All of that, you assess it over some meetings, and it's a genuine concern about compatibility. Then, when you get married, you have now drawn a very serious contract that for the rest of your life, you will work to cultivate and promote the love between you. So, the way it is in the modern system is, you fall in love, then you get married, then you get sick of each other and get divorced. That's the thing. Because it's like, oh, we're in love and all that, now we love. Man, you're not the person, because there was not a sincere suitability and compatibility. It was started with the attraction. Usually the guy thought she looked good and he starts pursuing her with his fake presentation of himself. And then she wants somebody, so she starts acting like somebody she's not. Okay? And then they never really get to know each other for real because they don't live together. And then they end up living like, man, I don't know what. So the whole thing was done in the wrong order, and that's why there's a big problem in marriage. And so that's mawadda, is that you work to cultivate that love and compassion. And then rahmah. Rahmah is like live and let live, forgive and forget, be ready to compromise for each other's comfort and best interests. So that's what Islam is telling us is the best model for marriage. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said in many hadith, he warned everybody and told them, "Istawsu bin nisa'i khayran." This hadith has been narrated by many, over a dozen companions of the Prophet have narrated this hadith. It is a hadith mutawatir. Okay? I advise you all to take good care of women. We have to be honest with ourselves. The treatment and attitude of women in the Muslim world, to a large degree, and I'm not generalizing, to a large unhealthy degree, is not in line with the prophetic tradition of the Prophet ﷺ. And we must review and revive this beautiful essence of the prophetic model if we're going to be true men and leaders of society. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فإنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. In summary, we are called to see a model of manhood. and a model of womanhood in the Quran and the Sunnah and the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and those who are deeply devoted to his message and brought us all here today for their hard work and sacrifice. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, help us to truly become real men and real women who are in your service, living for the covenant that we have with you in this life and the hereafter. Ya Allah, forgive us for any of our shortcomings or letting our guard down to the devil and all of his allies. Ya Allah, protect us from the devil and all of his allies. Ya Allah, help us to be those who bring good change to society, who revive the goodness of your message in the world, who establish justice and truth and steadfastness in the Muslim community, and bring about goodness and justice and fairness in the worldwide community. Ya Allah, we ask you to be with and comfort and give peace and safety and refuge to all of the Muslims who are struggling and striving and starving and going through murder and oppression all throughout the Muslim world. Ya Allah, be with them. Don't be against them. Don't hold them accountable of their shortcomings. Give them your immediate safety and support. Ya Allah, we ask you to make us a people who are focused in our faith, that we can do what we can do here in Charlotte to build a big, broader vision and picture of what we can do to make the world a better place. Ya Allah, we ask you to send your peace and blessings on the final messenger Muhammad. Wa aqimus salat.